Hello, welcome to the Native Prairie Restoration Reclamation Workshop, the case study. This is a Zoom meeting, so everyone has the ability to mute themselves or unmute themselves. So during the presentation, we ask that you remain unmuted, and during the breakout sessions is when you'll be able to, during the presentation, we ask that you remain muted, and then during the breakout session, you can unmute yourself. The format of this case study will be a presentation, and then we'll break out into smaller groups for about an hour, and we'll come back to recap. There is an expectation for everyone to actively participate in the small groups. So again, just keep yourself muted during the actual presentation and then unmute yourself when we're in the breakout session. The presentation portion of this case study and the recap will be recorded and available for reference after the event. However, the breakout sessions will not be recorded. I'd like to state that we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations and communities, past and present. For millennia, they have worked to protect these landscapes and the life these areas sustain. I'd like to thank these original caretakers and acknowledge the ongoing work and presence of Indigenous people in Canada today. I would like to remind everyone that when you're in the small groups, you're welcome to use your video cameras. If you have any technical issues, feel free to let me know and I can try to help you work through it. So I do want to remind everyone too that this is a case study and active participation is recorded. If you would like to, on your feed loop, you can hide the sessions or the dashboard by just clicking kind of a small arrow on the right or the left, and then I'll push it aside and you'll have more room and it won't be distracting. And you can make the Zoom into a full screen mode so you can maximize your experience here in the case study. I would also like to let everyone know that questions in the Zoom chat box will be moderated. The ones in the feed loop chat box is just for kind of general event networking. And Julie will answer questions at the end of her presentation, but feel free to type them in there anytime that you think of it. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Julie. Julie McKenzie is a professional agrologist and an active mixed farmer who grew up near Saskatoon, but now farms and consults in the Hazenmore, Saskatchewan area. Over the past 18 years, Julie has been active in extension, focusing on forages and rangeland agrology, beneficial management practice programming, invasive weed management, source water protection, and agricultural water management. Her involvement with the Sask Forage Council has been ongoing for nearly 2 decades. Julie developed the first forage species adaptation tool the council put out in 2007. Julie was excited to bring her knowledge of the previous Saskatchewan tool forward for the creation of Forage U-Pick for Western Canada, launched in June 2020. Julie is always looking forward to share with others. When not in her office or at a meeting, you will find her alongside her family, enjoying time with cattle, watching the kids play hockey, or enjoying never-ending yard work. So with that, I'm pleased to pass it over to you, Julie. And I do want to mention to our audience too that Julie was on last year's event, and we're bringing her back because it was such a success. So we're really excited Julie's able to do a case study today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Caitlin. So let me just switch screens here to screen share with you guys. Perfect. Yeah, and just I tried to work here when Caitlin was talking to make sure everyone's muted there. So hopefully you guys can hear me and we don't accidentally lose any of you here this afternoon. But I'm just going to do one more thing here. Let's get our there we go. Perfect. Just getting everything organized on this side. So we're going to spend a lot of time together this afternoon. And I am happy to be here with you today. Like Caitlin said, I'm an agrologist who spends my time working and consulting, mainly in forages and in a lot in drainage actually right now. And my forage work has really evolved, and from mainly habitat enhancement projects to more tame forage projects. And I've started to look at perennials a bit differently, and how they can complement each other and be adopted by more people. I also run a farm with my husband and his parents, and we crop 5,000 to 6,000 acres a year and run about 280 cows. So we have another 5,000 acres of pasture land and hayland to support the cows there too. So we also send cows to different community pastures, or they're now small corporation pastures across Saskatchewan for the summer, and are actively participating in those boards of those pastures too. So kind of that's a little bit more about my background there, and helping people who manage land, and helping people who manage, cropland or hayland, can help achieve broader landscape goals when those folks who are managing those lands are successful. So I want you to kind of think about that as we move through today. While we're going to explore Forage U-Pick today, I hope this thought kind of sticks in the back of your mind. How can each of you, we're in the kind of that soils topic today, but how can each of you help those people who manage those soils, manages those lands? How can you help them move to some broader landscape goals as you move through your time? So we have a tool for that, learning how to use Forage U-Pick. So we're going to venture into our case study, and this is what we'll be doing. I'm going to talk about what Forage U-Pick is. If you're here last year, you got a brief introduction. You get to play with it today. We're going to talk about determining your goals. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of the site navigation. We're going to have a break in there briefly, and then we're going to go on a case study scavenger hunt through the tool. Then I will declare a victor, and we'll have some wrap up and discussion. So there at the bottom of your feed loop, where it talks about Forage U-Pick in this session, there is a document that's going to have your scavenger hunt in there. So I'll give you time at during the break that you can go and find that, and if you haven't already, so that you're all set to win the scavenger hunt. So kind of some background about Forage U-Pick. The Saskatchewan Forage Council developed a dryland forage selection tool over 15 years ago. So that was the same time that the great little plant ID books were done. The first forage CD was done at the exact same time as that. That tool was really well used and adopted by many through like producers and ministries and professors for teaching, and reclamation companies. And what we saw was the functionality was starting to be an issue. It's just the way the technology has evolved, right, in that many years. So there needed to be newer technology. And so with that, there was a vision for a Western Canada tool, and have that tool created and to work together across all of Western Canada. So collaboration began, and I'm pretty sure we have some great folks on today who helped with that collaboration. So this is what the original dryland forage species adaptation tool looked like. And it was done with tax. So, that's and green cover money. So yeah, it was dated. So we moved into Forage U-Pick, and it was created and launched in June 2020 for Western Canada. I just checked this morning. So far, we have over 5,100 unique users since June 2020 that have used it. So over 5,000 folks. So really with this, we knew that collaboration was key with this project. So it's mobile and desktop friendly. So you're going to use it today. There's a data management set behind Forage U-Pick that has thousands of inputted characteristics when it's used as a filtering process through your inputs and selections, and you get down to a list of suitable forages for your situation. So Forage U-Pick covers both tame and native forages, and perennial and biennial species. So this is what the homepage here looks like. And we'll go through it. We'll go through it more in a couple minutes here. I want to acknowledge how does something like this come together? Well, through dedication of a lot of people who know a lot about forages and who've seen a lot of ground and how plants grow. The Beef Cattle Research Council is the home of Forage U-Pick. The beef industry has the ability to fund projects that can benefit beef producers. And as kind of maybe as you're in the reclamation industry, thinking about that. Oh, so we've got a couple people who aren't muted there. So if we could make sure, that would be great. Thank you. The with having you guys on the ground, think about some of those things, some of those unique partnerships. Beef Cattle Research Council is one of those unique partnerships because there's the ability to fund projects that can benefit beef producers. And what's better than to have a tool that can help beef producers choose what plants to grow on their farms. So the Alberta Beef and Forage Grazing, so that's a network there in the center. That's with the Alberta beef producers, we're a large contributor, the Sask Forage Council, the government Ministry of Agriculture in British Columbia too, and Manitoba had a lot of people resources to help out and contribute also there. So these are some of the content that supports the past project. So how does this work? Well, this is my this is my plant guru out there. This little guy standing there. Species have a wide range of zones that they can live in. When I talk about zones, in the Western Canada, we talk about lots of soil zones. And then, we get into BC and we talk about some of those eco zones and vegetative growing zones. But we're primarily today going to stay in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. So we have zones where we know that plants can grow. But their characteristics or ability to fit into a field in that zone might be different between zones. So this is where the species characteristics come in. So we've got these zones here, and we've got these species, all these different species, and they've all got characteristics. And when we have some overlapping there, that's when we start to see the differences. What I mean by that is, for example, longevity or use. The longevity of orchard grass in one zone, for example, of a tame species, that longevity is significantly different in one zone versus another zone, and their characteristics are different in that aspect. And so that's what Forage U-Pick really hones in on there. And it can hone in on it because of this great person here who contributes and knows a lot of different things and has seen a lot on the ground. Other things like soil characteristics, like how a plant is adapted to different soils, like maybe salinity and acidity really doesn't change significantly in zones. So there's lots of information out there. So it's to put it all into one place and double check it. Double check that it's correct, and it's still correct. And that's what Forage U-Pick did, is double checking that it was still correct from all that great information that was already out there, and making sure things didn't change. For example, when I say the double checking is important, one example I can use is little blue stem. It's a native stance and it should be long lived, right? But although it's easily growing, from the 20 years of work that's been done on it with Dr. Iwasa and Dr. Schellenberg, as two key folks who looked at that species, really they learned it's quite short-lived and didn't reproduce to a level that it stayed in a stand for a long time. So that's a native example of one of those species characteristics we've learned a lot about in the last 20 years when we're looking at seeding forages. So I want to do a little poll here. Let me just launch this, grab this here. I gotta expand us outwards now. Hey, Caitlin, would you launch a poll for me? Could
Yes.
you launch the poll? If you were going to seed native species this spring, what would be the biggest challenge you'd be facing this growing season?
Perfect. I'm going to launch that now.
There, you guys can see it up on your screen there. So if you were going to seed native species this spring, what would be the biggest challenge you'd be facing this growing season? Kind of one of those interesting little things. We've got drought as an option, seed costs, weed competition, seed availability. A couple more coming in. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, that's pretty good, Caitlin. We'll end the poll there. Share the results. Hey, so half of you, drought is your biggest challenge this year. Yep, that's a big one. Seed costs, there's some definite challenges there. Weed competition and seed availability. So that fills out the other 50% of that would be your challenges this year. When we're determining our goals, those challenges are really big things. And so we have to look at our challenges to determine our goals. Awesome. We'll just close that there. Thank you very much. Good to know. Good to know where you're all sitting too. I want to talk about determining our goals in wrapping into Forage U-Pick and thinking about that. Like sometimes I think that we give these species, at least some of these native species or forage species in general, a blanketed bad rap because of us humans. These plants are really are fighters. I've heard lots of people say, oh, it's hard to grow, it's hard to establish. Well, yeah, yes, there's some that we haven't yet cracked their code on yet. Maybe there's some things, ones we don't quite know enough about to really give them a good fighting chance. And maybe we never will, right? But lots of things are in our control. We have control over competition and timing of seeding and seed bed and quality techniques and quality seed and all of these human controlled things that sometimes we go and blame the plant for. So, ensuring that species, whether it be native or tame, are well matched to your growing conditions, improves that establishment rate and that yield and that vigor and that quality. So we're here talking in the workshop about native prairie restoration and reclamation. And no matter how we spin it, that value of prairie revolves around functionality and what we get from the prairie. That's how we place value on things. And even if we think it's a societal benefit, it's still something that we are like getting. And so what prairie species can be used where to help with this functionality in our get. And I think it is like, where maybe can we use some of those species to provide functionality, because there's lots of species that evolved to adapt to the climate we have, and they adapted to they are adapted to those future extremes we'll see, and they can flourish and still do and will. So it's maybe how can we use some of these great prairie species and some of these great native species maybe in a way we didn't think about before. So I can't see your hands up. You guys can put your hands up on feed loop, but I can't see them. So I was going to do it where put your hands up as we go along, but I want you to think about it. Put your mental hand up here. If the answer is yes, and we'll see see kind of where we're at when we how our thinking changes as we go through this, determining our goals and what our goal is. We should all ask ourselves, do we want people seeding native species? And likely by attending this workshop, you're a hands up person. Is it good for habitat to have native species growing? And is it good for the soil to have native species growing? And is it good for upping climate resilience to have native species growing? And then ask yourself, is the only time we can seed native species when we're recreating native prairie? Some of you might have your hand up, other of you might have your hands down. And that's a determining a goal thing. You know, what is our overall goal? Is that the only time? Because I want us to also look and think about this as we go through U-Pick, and this is kind of like pulling us out of the box a little bit, but look at context. You know, if we're seeding 1 acre, and if we're seeding 10 acres, or if we're seeding 160 acres or 1,000 acres or 10,000 acres, seeding all of those acres is important, but is the only time we can seed native species when we're seeding 1 acre, or is the only time we can seed native species when we're seeding 10 acres. But what if I have 1,000 acres to seed and I want to make sure I have some of those native species in there? What's my ability? Am I able to recreate native prairie in that context of restoration or of a reclamation, or can I still use native species? And I think that's something we can think about sometimes, because no goal is wrong. So determine your goal, no goal is wrong. And so with that, I really challenge you today to move away from thinking that only your goal or the goal that you might have or have had in different projects is the only goal that's right for when it comes to using native forages or native species. I tend to call them forages, but using those native species. So there's lots of different ways we can use native species there. So I didn't realize how much I missed green until I was putting this slide in kind of as like a bridger slide. And then I put it in, and then I was like, oh, I should talk about it being green. Because it's bad, and it's really bad for lots of people right now who manage prairie and manage forages, or both. Many of them are faced with extreme drought right now, and this isn't what it looked like in 2021, and this isn't what it's going to look like in 2022 out there. So I want you today, as we move into this talking about Forage U-Pick more, is that to think of it maybe this way a little bit too, and about the drought situation we talk about maybe its impact on prairie and impact on people, is that think about you work at your job all year round, and come September, you have to reach into a hat and pull out a card that says what your wage would have been for the year. And so that's what a lot of the people that you're working with on the ground on prairie are facing and have been facing. And so continually asking those people how they're doing and how you can help them, and how you can help them manage their prairie is really important as we move forward, because if not, we'll end up losing a lot of these great managers. So Debbie Downer, there's always optimism. And so with that, I want to walk us through moving through Forage U-Pick, because we have this huge opportunity to get some of these great species onto the landscape here. So this is where we're going to go today. And I'm going to end my show here for a second. There we go. Okay. And switch gears. So I'm going to be having to do lots of switching back and forth today. You all get to watch me do it. So we're just going to minimize that for a second here. And I'm going to pull up Forage U-Pick. I think we are good to go there. Okay, Caitlin, we're good to go there.
Okay.
You guys can see that?
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Okay, so I am going to just hide my video for a minute while I share this with you guys for a second here. Okay, So we have Forage U-Pick. This is what it looks like. And so I'm going to walk you guys through it here now. We've got it here. I just move my camera a little bit, so it kind of looks like I'm actually looking at you while I do this. There we go. Okay, so we've got Forage U-Pick here, and like I said, it launched in 2020, and we had users from all over the world checking it out. And as we get to seeding time again here, we know the buzz about Forage U-Pick will continue, and it can be really useful for you in picking forages. And like I said, we've got had over 5,000 folks try it so far, with 20% using it more than once, so that's pretty good. So I want to give you a walkthrough here. It's kind of what you can find in the tool and what you're going to use today on our stellar case study scavenger hunt. I know sometimes I don't have time to spend time exploring things, and so that's what I really wanted to use today to be is, hey, this is some time for you to explore. And this is what the homepage looks like here. Anytime you want to go back to the homepage, you can just mouse over the Forage U-Pick logo there. It has 3 areas. And so we've got forages suited to my field, the seeding rate calculator, and forage weed management. And we know that there's economic success can increase seeding, forage species, native or tame, when we have weed control. So that's why this is in here, but I'm not going to touch on this section today in my chat. But when you're there on your own with your case study, you can you'll have to go into there at one point. So there's some great resources in this area, and including like weed ID and common forage weeds for each soil or regional zone in Western Canada. So we're going to start by looking at forage suited to my field. We've got our great funding partners down there. We're going to start here on forages suited to my field. Here, so we've clicked into there. We've got all the prairie provinces. A neat little fact is, if you live in the east, Eastern Forage U-Pick, it will be coming to you within the next 12 months. We will have Forage U-Pick for everywhere in Canada at that point. So there's a great team over there working hard away, led by Ontario and the Maritimes and Quebec, and it's super exciting times. So we're going to start here and selecting here. This is our provinces of where we live, and today you'll be able to go in and take a look at each different province here. Today we're going to live in Saskatchewan, so we're going to click on the province of Saskatchewan. And this takes us to a map of the province here, with the different soil zones. So lots of the main communities are on the map here. And then you can find where you live. So really, like I said before, that U-Pick only starts with a list of forage species that are actually suited to your zone. The forage researchers over the past 60 years have well documented what will thrive under different climatic conditions and what we see in different zones. And they're continually revising this list, and those revisions have all been added to Forage U-Pick. So let's say you farm here between Watrous and Moose Jaw. And so we're going to select the dark brown soil zone. So we know we live in the dark brown soil zone here, and we're now at a place called My Field Characteristics. And if you want to see all of the forage species that are suited to your soil zone, you can just scroll down and view results. But if you're like, hey, I've got something going on my farm and I want to narrow down the forages that might work for me in my situation, these are what the most important things might be on your farm, either in your field or how you want to use the forage. So I mentioned this there in my presentation about this and how we got to this. And there's 10 selection criteria to choose from, but selecting your top 2 or 3 priorities really gives you the most species and most options. So we'll scroll through here. We've got purpose of the forage, time of use, desired plant type. If we want native species, that's where we type in here, how long we want the stand to live for. And then we've got all these little helpful questions that talks about a little bit more about what do we mean by erosion tendency within the field. So some of the other unique ones are average time available to regrow. You know, it's that under normal dish, the growing conditions for that soil zone and normal management, is the potential for recovery between uses there, and you know, being practical and realistic and using that criteria there. So I want to change. This is what I'm going to want on my place here. I want something for pasture here, and I want to use it in the summertime. And I really have very little to low erosion tendencies right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select 3 things, and I'm going to hit view results. Let me just go back here for a second. Sorry, 1 second here. Pasture, summer, very little. Okay, so we've got those pasture, summer, very little, view results. Sorry, I was playing with it earlier and I didn't reset things. There we go. So as you see, there's a lot of things that could grow in that time. Very little are shaded out. You know, if I want to see return to my field characteristics here, and I want to only select native species here, so I got going to kick out all those tame species. I can just add or change one more, and I can go back here to view results. And then I'm only going to see the native species there. So, you know, it's really geared toward ag producers and the end users there. So let's say I want to look at green needlegrass. So these are all those species that are suitable to the dark brown soil zone and suited to those characteristics I said were going to be in my field. So if I head over to green needlegrass here, it's going to give me some key points about green needlegrass that are producer orientated. So they're very much geared towards the farmer and what the farmer is going to be looking for. But I can find more details about it. If I go into here, we've got some great additional pictures of some green needlegrass. And as we go along, and also too, I can also find information about green needlegrass. We've got those top 3 points there, but we've got lots of different information here, you know, about seeding, how many seeds are there, and maybe what some suggested mixtures are and how easy it is to establish. Lots more information about green needlegrass with those full details there. So if we go back to our forage list, it takes us back to where we were before there. And we can look at more species, but if we want to go back to our field and change some characteristics, we can go back there too. So these are all things, species that can grow. Doesn't mean they're necessarily the ones you should all use together in a mix, but it's giving you a starting point. And that's really where Forage U-Pick, it comes in handy, is it's a great starting point there. You know, if we tap on purple prairie clover here, it gives us those great quick facts about purple prairie clover and those top characteristics, you know, and things that are going to be important to producers, that it's been really successful in long-term research at Swift Current. That gives that vote of confidence to someone who's maybe not familiar with the species, and it's effectively used in seeded native stands. Some of those key points for that someone might want to know about to take the leap. So let's return to our field characteristics page here, and we're going to clear those selections. So today, as you play through it, you get to go back and forth. We're going to clear our selections, so everything's set back to 0 here. And let's say we have a patch in our field here with some salinity issues here. So we're here, and we've got some maybe some moderate salinity issues here. And our field floods for 1 to 2 weeks a year here in the spring. And these are the most important characteristics I want to address in this field. And so that's what we really encourage users to do, is key in on those most important ones. And so here we'll go zip on through that and see what we spit out. We're still in that dark brown soil zone. So these are the species here that are going to be best for that moderate salinity and flooding for 1 to 2 weeks a year. That these are the species that include all the ones that are suitable for that characteristic. So there's lots of options here, mainly tame options. So let's take a quick look here at tall fescue, and it just gives us that little bit more information, and then we can click more into full details about it, and learn a little bit more and see some more pictures of it there. So then we can head on back, returning to our forage list. Anytime you want to switch to a different soil zone, you can just either go back through this way, through Forage U-Pick this way, or you can click on your soil zone there, and it'll take you back to the provinces, and you can select somewhere else there. So, if we go back and into Alberta, we can see that there's more zones there. We've got Peace River, the gray, the black, the dark brown, and brown soil zones there. There's lots of opportunity to use this tool to generate lists of species that are suitable to the characteristics of your field, or where you're looking to plant. But the key tip is don't overprescribe your fields. Focus on the key needs of maybe two or three of your key needs there, because forages are adapted where they're well managed. This is the Peace River region. Let's look at maybe a native species here that we want to live for at least 5 years. And let's take a quick look here about what it's going to spit out. It's going to give me a list of some of the native species that are suitable to the Peace River region there. So it's kind of one of those unique things to use there. We'll return to our field characteristics. That one was I just did that as I was hanging out here, but there's lots of different opportunity to play around and see what pops out, because for best results, choosing 1 to 3 selection criteria that are the highest priority for your field will give you the most species to look into more. I think that's it, is like we want to look into them more, and then get someone to help you look into them more. So with that, let's see who can help you more a little bit. Caitlin, maybe we'll launch that next poll there, and see who can help us more. So who do you have to support you in your forage species choices and seeding rates? So who helps you? Do you have co-workers that help you? Do you have agrologists that help you? Do you have a seed sales team that helps you? Or you don't use anyone to help you with those decisions? Once you've kind of narrowed it down a little bit, who helps you out? Oh, looks like a lot of you rely on your co-workers, so that's a good one. Agrologists, seed sales teams, I don't use anyone. Those are our kind of options there. That looks pretty good. Looks like everyone's voted. I'll share the results. 60% of you pretty much rely on your coworkers. Another 33% on agrologists. Those could overlap probably too. I understand that, but seed sales teams. So we've got some support there too. And some of you don't use anybody else, and that's a-okay too, especially if this is your thing that you spend a lot of time on too, right? So I think it's kind of neat that we can rely on those coworkers often to just bounce the ideas off of, and see what they think. Often too with mixes, still spend a lot of time bouncing the ideas off of people, especially for some of those unique situations. So awesome. So really encourage you guys to take a look and see who can help you out, and always ask if you ever need it. There's lots of folks around who can give you a hand too. I want to hop into for me, the other exciting part of the tool. This is the seeding rate calculator. So I went back here to Forage U-Pick to the homepage, which takes me to these 3 buttons for Western Canada here. And if we hop into the seeding rate calculator, you guys will have a chance to play with this today here. To me, the seeding rate calculator is about knowing where to start from once you know what you want to seed. So you already have an idea of what you want to seed, and it's really putting the right amount of seed in the ground to have the best possible chance of getting a good stand. I was doing some seeding on a ditch the other day, trying to figure out how much grass seed I was going to need, and I just used the calculator because I made the calculator, so I may as well use it. But and it's got the numbers behind it and know it works, and it's great because you can play around with it as you go, and you can be like, okay, what if I increase a little bit more seed for because of reclamation purposes, or because of how challenging it is, or what happens if I have a poor quality seed, so pure a lower PLS, right? And so that's really neat to play around with that sort of thing when you're looking at doing a seeding and a successful seeding. So we want to start our zone here in the peat. It automatically sits there on piece because that's where we were before, but we don't want to be there. We're going to be in the black soil zone and mix it up here a little bit. So it's important that we look at this drop down when we're using this part of Forage U-Pick, because it won't necessarily put us where we want to go. So we need to make sure we are where we want to go. So there's different times you might adjust your seeding rate. And these are all different times we could adjust our seeding rate and suggestions, and it gives you the chance to increase your overall seeding rate, or if you're seeding for reclamation purposes, for putting more seed out there, or if you're broadcasting, you might want to increase your overall seeding rate. I work in pounds because that's generally how farmers talk. So you'll be subjected to that part of it. It was interesting developing Forage U-Pick when you're working with folks who don't work with farmers, and they don't realize that farmers talk in pounds and acres. So one of those neat little things that you probably come across in your world. So what we'll do here is we start by choosing what to seed in a field, and we're going to choose purple prairie clover and green needlegrass and northern wheatgrass. And to note, though, all the forage species that are in U-Pick are listed in this list here. So that they're all listed there with the legumes first. So we're going to start with some purple prairie clover here, and I want to seed 20% of it in my stand. And we're going to go with the default PLS. This is from the Canada Seeds Act, and so we're just going to go with the default there. We want 20% of purple prairie clover. Then we're going to add a forage, and what we're going to add to our mix here is we're going to add some green needlegrass. So we're going to scroll down here to green needlegrass, and it's going to give me an error message because I'm over 100%. We're going to get back down here. We're going to seed it at 40% of our mix there. So now it's telling us a tally of how much we're seeding at a time there. And we're going to leave its default PLS there also too. And we're going to add one more forage to our mix here, and we're going to add some northern wheatgrass. Kind of a basic cow mix there. So we're going to get down there to also 40%, leave it at our default PLS. And we can scroll down here that this is what our seeding rate is going to be, and how much of each species is going to be in our mix here. We can actually add in what our cost would be per pound there. So if we went back and I don't even know, I didn't even check that these are this year's costs. These are old costs. I'm sure you guys will just laugh at my costs that I'm going to put in here, that that they're probably not even close to what they are this year. I just went off costs I had from previous years. So let's just put in some costs and how much an acre it could be for us there. So it's just our seeding rate as we go. If we were to change our pure live seed value, that's going to adjust our seeding, our pounds per acre. So let's say we have really good seed lot here. You know, we've adjusted our seeding rate because we have a better lot of seed there. So we have to put less seed in the ground because we've got better seed. You know, we go back down here to where it was before. There we go. There we go. And then, so we've got what our rate is there. Oh, my auto calculate didn't work there, but because I adjusted some things. But what you see here is we see that we can really get to us what our seeding rate would be there. And we can always remove a forage and add a forage as we go through. And really where this helps us is that it gives us a starting point. And it really gives us a starting point as far as like, okay, I can start playing with things. I can start needing to add more seed, take away other seed amounts. There's a factor in here, a calculation. It's done for some of those smaller seeds, you know, when we start to need to put more seed in because it's a smaller seed, there's some correction factors that are also in there, and talks about those inside some of our tables there. And so looking at, you know, if we have those tough fields, we can increase our overall seeding rate or reclamation purposes. We want to keep using calculators and keep using good science behind putting the right amount of seed in the ground, right? We want that really good establishment. We want that really good stand. Once we know what we want to seed, we want to make sure we get enough seed in the ground so that we're going to have a good success, so that people aren't going to say, well, you can't seed natives because they don't grow, because we know they grow. And that's really important there. So I'm going to pop back up here to the first page of Forage U-Pick there. You know, I want you to encourage like some good discussion as we move through the rest of the afternoon here too. And as you spend some time playing around, you know, knowing that this is kind of this is a starting point thing, and there's some cool natives in here, and some discussion that you guys can have in your groups too about the species that are there. What we're going to do now is we're about 40 minutes in, so that's pretty good timing. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. Caitlin, is that what you're thinking?
Sure. Yeah. 5-10 minutes.
Sure. Why don't we come back at 2:15?
Perfect.
So give everybody a minute to take some time. We're going to come back at 2:15, and I'll introduce you to the case study stuff. Before you come back though, there should be at the bottom of the feed loop information, there should be the scavenger hunt questions. And I find them helpful to print them off, but you can also have them on 2 screens, maybe, if you want, or however you want to run it. And then we'll come back and give you instructions and kind of put you into, it's an individual activity, but there's a little bit of teamwork. So just right for plant people.
Maybe before we go, Julie, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for the great presentation. And it would now be an appropriate time for questions from the attendees, or do you want to give them a break first?
Oh, sure. We can do, we can do questions first.
Does anyone have any questions? Everyone's been pretty quiet so far, but I guess because everyone's muted. If you have a question, you're welcome to type it into the chat section. Otherwise, you can message us directly if you have a question about the technical thing. One question here from Elaine: is it okay to mix native and forage species together in the field?
Well, you know, that was part, I didn't say that in determining your goals, but you know what? I think that's where we need to maybe open our minds a little bit, in that, hey, I personally have mixed tame and native together, and if prices are fair for seed, I will do it again too. I think natives have a huge advantage, and I think there's myself, I think it's a good thing if we can get more native species growing. And if we have to do it by having them share a space with some tame species, maybe that's not a bad thing. I think that's that opening your mind up a little bit to those things. So I personally love to do it myself, where, you know, we've got some meadow brome and green needlegrass and western wheatgrass, and alfalfa all growing together, and it's a happy little family out there. So
Awesome. That's good to hear. Um, so I guess that's all the questions that we have. So if anyone has anything, feel free to message us, and we will reconvene in about 5 minutes at 2:15, and we'll continue on with our case study then. So we'll see everyone in 5 minutes. There we go. And I just wanted to mention that there are some comments from Mark on the feed loop side of things. And he says he wouldn't recommend planting slender wheatgrass in the brown soil zone in Saskatchewan, and that native species should be seeded in early spring or dormant seeded in the late fall. Any seedings containing slender wheatgrass or cereal cover crops must be cut prior to seed set. Refer to the restoration of Saskatchewan agricultural crown rangelands. Do you have any comments about that at all?
Slender wheatgrass has actually, there's lots of pretty good stands in the brown soil zone of actually ones that have actually proliferated too, actually. So yeah, it's a shorter lived. That's definitely a good point, that it is a short lived species. And that's one of those great things about Forage U-Pick, that it touches on those times of year, sorry, not times of year, that touches on the longevity, I mean, of some of those species. So yeah, those are really good seeding points. Good tips to share with everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Great. Anyways, I'll let you continue on.
No, that's perfect. Great tips. Perfect. So where you guys are going to go for part of the afternoon here is it's www.upick.beefresearch.ca. What we're going to do is we're going to put you guys into Zoom rooms. And so these are your instructions here. Within your Zoom room, you get to work by yourselves off of your scavenger hunt that was there. This is the top of the scavenger hunt. So in your Zoom room, introduce yourself to your team. There will be places in the scavenger hunt where you need to come back to and work as a team, but figure out as your team as a strategy for these questions. So some teams might say, hey, you know what, let's just do these questions first, or hey, let's do them at the very end, because they're spread throughout and you can just work through things by yourself. But you know, sit in your Zoom room while you're working on your stuff, so that you know you guys can chat too. You can unmute yourself and chat at the time, because there's some that you get to work together and kind of come up with some answers there, and so we can have some discussion at the end, because there's things like Mark pointed out about slender wheatgrass in the brown soil zone. There might be some questions like that where you have to talk about it yourself and come to a conclusion. Like all good plant folks, you're going to compete for the prize, which is probably just Caitlin saying how great you did.
Actually, I could give the winning group gamification points.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's actually points.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's points. Okay, perfect. So we have points up for grabs, but we're not rushing. Okay, grade 1s and 2s, we're not rushing through this. We have time. So you're gonna get letters as you go through your scavenger hunt. You have to find, like, it might be the first word, the first letter, and then you have to take that letter, and you're going to have 13 letters when you're done, and then you're going to need unscramble your letters into a 3-word phrase. So this is complex. Knowing that because we're in the Native Prairie Restoration and Reclamation Workshop, all of the questions are about native species. Okay, so that's one of those things there. So I'll hop in and out of rooms, help you guys with answers and questions and stuff if you need, or if you need clarification, or ask your teammates. Everybody can go explore. Did I miss anything, Caitlin?
No, I think so. I just want to remind everyone that when you're in the rooms, the goal is for active participation. You will not be recorded while you are in the breakout rooms. We'll resume the recording for the recap at the end. And when you're in the breakout rooms, you can unmute yourself and turn on your webcam and engage just like a real in-person event and get your virtual hands dirty with this activity. So whenever you give me the go, Julie, I will send them away.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll do 5 breakout rooms of about 8 people each. So here we go.
But you're not putting me in a breakout room, right?
I don't think so. There, I think you and I are still here.
It
Everybody
asked me
is
to invite to room 1, so I'm saying not now.
okay.
For me.
Yeah, I think people might have to click on a join section.
Right, so join your room there. There we go.
Okay, and then I can give everyone like a 5-minute warning or something when you want them to wrap up.
Cool. And they can't hear us right now, or can they?
I think once people are actually gone, then they won't be able to, but I see we still have a few here. I'm just going to move people over.
That's okay. If there's ones that, this is good because if there's ones who end up not joining.
There we go. I think there's about 7 people per room, so.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Not that that matters. Do you want me to send a message to everyone, making sure everyone's?
Sure. Do you know, can you do that from your end, or do you want me to?
I can send a message.
Okay.
I don't know how to.
Okay, and I'm going to pause the recording.
Room 5 with Christina, Eric, Jamie, and Sarah. Did you guys get an answer?
We have all the letters.
You have all the letters too. Good job. That's awesome.
I was kind of hoping we'd get to go last and then we'd just say, yeah, we said that too. Yeah, we got that same answer.
We all hope that in life, don't we? Okay, room 4 with Kathy, Chelsea, Dawn, Elaine, and Megan. Did you guys get all the letters, Megan?
We did not get number 11. No, we did get number 11. We didn't get number 9, but we got the rest.
Didn't get number 9, but you guys got the rest. That's pretty good. Okay, so group 1 and group 5. Well, don't you think, Caitlin, everyone who was in those like rooms and stuck it out should get us a point or 2? Caitlin?
Yeah, I can do that too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Everybody whose name I've written down that were active in the rooms, you all get points.
Good
job.
I can send it to you privately through Feedloop, so that way the people who weren't active don't get it.
Okay. The answer actually was forages are fun, was the answer.
Oh, we had forage.
Forages are fun.
I was looking for a C for fescue.
Rescue's fun too.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna share with you guys my little bit of a wrap up. Thank you, firstly, for participating in that activity. When you're putting together something together, you're not exactly sure how long or needs to be or hard it needs to be. So thank you for those of you who stuck it out as our guinea pigs for the first time we've ever done that. So thank you for that. Let me just share my screen here with you.
Will it show us the answers too?
I can show you guys the answers. Yeah. Give me a second here. Sorry, 1 second. I need to open something else here. 1 second, and I will show you the answers. But I'll show you the answers, and I'm going to ask you guys, or just the little bit of discussion that here. Here's my keys to the answers. Okay. Sorry, sometimes my internet slows down here at this end. I know we got 10 minutes left in our afternoon together. Thank you guys very much. I hope you had some fun looking at Forage U-Pick there. Here we go. Okay, these are the answers. Venturing into the forage weed management, one weed species. That would have been Canada thistle, and plants are either male or female. So female would have been the answer there for F. When you go into the Peace region here, and you look at the species without grass in its name and venture into that species, as the answer is seedlings are exceptionally, and that's E. And then this one was hard, this teamwork one, where you had to go look at all these, you had to compare what you guys were seeing, and for different regions. And actually what it's really telling us is that there are species that are common between, if we were looking at Lethbridge or Medicine Hat or Didsbury, there's actually 8 species that were in common there. And I asked you guys to talk about, would you see them in a mix together? And, you know, would you tend to see those 8 species in a mix together? And I guess, would you guys? And does anyone have any comments on that?
Our group thought that, well, we actually got 7, but obviously that's incorrect. We thought that maybe that was a little bit aggressive in terms of like the number of, of species that you would include in a seed pick. So we kind of went through and, obviously we didn't have like a ton of additional info on the site, but we decided to kind of nix 2 of the species that were more suited for sites with salinity issues, or sites that maybe had some flooding or were wetter. So we nixed a couple species off the bat and then kind of went from there. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was getting at, Megan. Good job in your guys' team for discussing that. Like, that is that remembering Forage U-Pick is a tool to help you get started, and that's the getting started part, is like, hey, no, like, we're not going to add some wetland species, more wetter species in here just because that's what we picked. So you know, that's the important thing to realize, that we may not, even though there's 8 there, they may not all get seeded. So that's great. Anybody else have any more comments on that? Feel free to tap it into the chat. And Caitlin, if I'm missing any of the chat, please let me know. Okay, I got a whole bunch of screens open right now.
For sure.
The next one was in British Columbia, central interior, a native legume may be hard to find, but there is one there, and you had to dig deeper, and it's highly palatable for mule deer. So that one was a tough one there. It's really just figuring out how to kind of navigate through there. the next one was in the brown soil zone, what is the most saline tolerant native species that we had listed? And so that might have taken a little bit of digging there, but it's alkali saltgrass, and A is the letter there. And that, sorry, number 4 was a U. Looking at some teamwork here, over there in Manitoba, Brandon, Manitoba. I don't think my friend, I looked and I don't think my friend May's on today. She was so integral to help us with Forage U-Pick too. But you know, if you look and see how many species there were, and if you started to dig a little deeper and compare them, and this is where having 2 screens open helps, and the number was 6. So the question is, though, as a team, do you think you would seed 2 different forage species, 2 different forage mixes, or 1 in a site like this? And that was one of the questions there. And so lots of folks might say they would do two different seedings in a place like that. And that's kind of one of those things, is like, use this as a tool to help you look at what natives, what their characteristics are, and then move on from there. We sometimes set forages at a disadvantage when we ask too much of them. Time to regrow is one of those things. And so if you go into that help or the description, it talks about what the factor is there for time to regrow. So it's often something that forage users want to know, is how many times can I use this species? And that's going to be one of those things that maybe as you're working at setting up a native planting, you might get asked that. And that's the answer was, it is a factor that considers physiology, with the 9th letter is the G there. So we had another question here about in the dark brown soil zone, which native species is the shortest time required to regrow then, and that's reed canary grass. The only native legume listed in Forage U-Pick in the 3 prairie provinces, purple prairie clover, the letter is O. And why, I guess, there'd be bonus points. Well, if I gave bonus points, why we thought it would be the only one. And anybody have any ideas why it's the only one included in Forage U-Pick?
Does it have to do with like seed availability, or just the difficulty of planting legumes? I don't know if it's difficult to plant legumes, but yeah, maybe something along that realm.
Yeah, anybody else? Well, Megan could have joined the Forage U-Pick committee, because that is exactly what what they said. We want this to be used by people who are going to, you know, we don't want to give them a species that they're not going to be able to find, that's not going to be able to grow for them, and it's not going to be usable in that aspect. So that's why purple prairie clover is the only one that's included. Wouldn't it be great if we could figure out a way that there could be more and more used, and fingers crossed we might get to that someday, right? So there's folks working on that, but that's why that's the only one included right now. Okay, the fight is on. One of the groups asked me about this right off the bat. This plant is considered both native and tame, but only in one zone. Use Forage U-Pick to determine the species, which is Kentucky bluegrass, and what is the zone it's considered. It was debated and considered both native and tame, and it is in the gray soil zone. And so that's one of those, usually people are on either side of the fence on that one. So the next one here is my dad, and he wants to seed some natives for the summer, but he's not sure if he wants to graze it in the summer or the fall. And when we compare, you know, time of use, he'd have opportunity to have 4 more species in the summer there. And this is kind of one of those questions as a team. Someone said something as the letters were coming up, and we've got 2 more minutes left, and I wanted to ask, so if there's a species that's glaringly missing from Forage U-Pick, a native species? Somebody mentioned the word when they were trying to figure out the letters. What was that, Chelsea? I can see your lips moving.
Festuca, Festuca Helia.
Yeah. So fescue's missing. And lots of folks might say, you know, how do we not have fescue? But actually, when we were doing Forage U-Pick, it was actually included in the first version, and it was taken out because it just has not been successful in establishment from seed, and setting folks up to succeed is what we wanted to do with Forage U-Pick. So some very knowledgeable researchers and folks said, yeah, take it out, because we just can't get it established, and we don't want to set folks up for broad failure that way. So yeah, unfortunately we don't get to include that one. So number 11 was, the answer was 9.37, and if you stuck it out till the very end, you got an A with your team there. You didn't really have to do any work there. You just could play around with the calculators. So the 3-word phrase is forages are fun. I think forages are fun, and hope that you can use Forage U-Pick as a tool sometime for what you do, or maybe helping people with what they do. And thanks for giving me your afternoon and your time. And if there's any more questions, let me know what your questions are, and you can get off and then curse me out for making such a long scavenger hunt. So.
Well, thank you so much. That was really awesome. I know it was really, really challenging for a lot of our group members, but hopefully everyone got to work together, meet some new people, and that's kind of the purpose of it, is to network. And yeah, so thank you for putting this together. I know it wasn't easy, and I think sometimes these virtual events are more work for the presenters and case study leaders than actual in-person one.
Sure.
So to everyone who's been on our case study today, we have a gamification code for you. It's Tuesday, all capital letters, and that's a thank you for participating. And then to the winners, Julie, if you don't mind sending me your list of winners, I don't think I screenshotted them all. I think I just emailed you which rooms I need, and I will send it to you privately through the feed loop chat. It probably won't be right away because I'm going to be uploading a few things, but in the next day or so, or as soon as I can, I will send those out to people. And then just a reminder that tomorrow the trade show and poster session is available at 9 a.m. and we will be starting with our water session at 9:30. I definitely recommend going to the trade show and poster while you're eating your breakfast, drinking your coffee, and you can enjoy watching some videos while you're enjoying your morning coffee. So again, the word for participating in today's this afternoon's case study is Tuesday. Like today is Tuesday, February 8th. So all capital letters, Tuesday. Yeah, and I think that's everything on my end. Do we have any other questions from the audience coming in? Just lots of thank yous, and it was fun. So I will reiterate that. So thank you very much, Julie.
No problem. Forages are fun. And the word was Tuesday. All capital.
Awesome.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great rest of your day. Bye.